Well, hey there, and welcome to another segment of Alignment Happy Hour, which is still what I'm going to attempt to call this segment. But basically, we are going to be having these very casual, informal conversations about all things alignment, especially as it pertains to the conscious human experience. If you're watching a video like this, following work like this, then you're on a conscious spiritual path, and you are most definitely running into the human aspects that can spit us right out of alignment sometimes. The happy hour part comes in because we get to have a nice, fun beverage. And each time I have a guest, I'm inviting them to bring a fun beverage. I'm one of those people that loves, just the ambiance, or as my daughter likes to say, the aesthetic of it, of beverages, especially seasonal. So I've got my iced coffee. I'll ask my lovely, beautiful guest what she has shortly. But welcome. I'm Nova Whiteman. And my guest today is somebody who is so special to me. So special to me. I can't even begin to tell you. She is somebody that I have had the privilege of not only knowing and meeting magically, but working with. She's my coach, my business coach that I've been working with. We're guessing 4 years now. It's crazy to me to think that. It feels like I just met her yesterday, but it also feels like I've known her not only this lifetime, but hundreds of lifetimes. One of those soul connections for sure. Her name is Amisha Patel, and she is the CEO and owner of the Tree of Life Success Series. And to say that she has transformed my business and my life and life as I know it is just such a stupid statement because it doesn't even begin to capture it. Plus, she's a load of fun. A load of fun. So welcome, Amisha. I'm so glad you're doing this with me.
Thank you, Nova. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Yeah, and tell us what you're drinking.
Well, I'm finishing a cup of coffee. Usually, I leave it on a bookshelf in the mornings. Sometime at some point, walking around, it ends up somewhere, and then I find it in the evening. But today, it's safe with me for happy hour. I'm eating tahini dressing with a wooden spoon, my favorite, my favorite salad dressing because I couldn't help it. And I'm in Arizona right now, so I have a hydration drink. I feel like I'm promoting it, but you know, it's so hot here and it's the desert, so I get to have three things.
Yes, product placement right there. No, this channel isn't big enough yet. But that all sounds wildly interesting, and you are an overachiever in the drink department.
Thank you. I
I did,
agree. Yes.
yeah. So we want to talk about an aspect of this conscious journey that we'll just refer to as what is destiny versus free will. You know, I speak a lot to, and I write a lot about it. This in my book about conscious creation, and in the spiritual community these days, manifestation is a word that is just saturated. It's just everywhere. And it's used in some ways that are really inspiring and useful. And sometimes it's used in ways that are maybe a little bit dismissive and even annoying in some circles. So, really, what I would like to do is kind of clear up the difference, or at least attempt to have that conversation to clear up the difference between, or where that line is, like what part of our life, what part of our experience would fall under the category of that conscious intentional creation, manifestation, and destiny, like meaning you can't change it even if you wanted to, because it's something that was destined to happen. But before we dive in, Amisha, I think it's important that people know a little bit about your background and why you're one of the most perfect people in the world to speak to this. So you were a college professor. I forget the name of the school. Where were you a college professor at?
I was at a few different universities, but my last college was Providence College in Rhode Island.
And what did you teach?
My background's in philosophy and in creative writing literature. So I began with more traditional courses teaching more specifically humanities topics, but as I became more passionate about business, I started to look at an applied version of philosophical concepts. So for instance, in philosophy and in physics, they talk about something called causality and determinism. And in simple terms, that's fate and free will. So being a professor and thinking about those things, but then hearing people's stories where they were often blaming themselves for results, or they were feeling overly responsible for results. And then in hearing the stories, I could personally tell, okay, I think maybe they're too quick to dismiss a possibility, AKA they think it's meant to be. Oh, that wasn't meant to be. Okay, I tried to go for that job, but it wasn't meant to be. So they were either using fate as an excuse not to get where they belong, or they were thinking that they were to blame. It's their responsibility. I didn't get what I want because I'm wrong. I'm bad. I need something more. And these, for me, these concepts are pragmatic. If we understand how they unfold in our lives, then we can tell the difference without, making up these stories and using it really, I would say more superficially. Yeah. Yeah. So by the end of my college career, I was more interested in innovation and helping business school students because I saw them as creating the world. They're going to go out there, they're going to determine what leadership looks like. They're going to determine what businesses we drive past on the road. And we shouldn't just keep the pretty ideas safe and pretty somewhere and then use them when we're feeling down. We should actually be applying them in a more logical way in real time, especially when we're doing big work in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is what I so appreciate about you in general, but especially when you open your mouth and these magical words spill out in such a pragmatic way is I'm somebody that loves the middle path. I know that I lean one way versus the other in some areas, but I always try to bring myself back to, especially where spirituality and consciousness are concerned, like, oh, this feels like truth. It's feeling based, my intuition, maybe it's received. And then find a way to humanize it. And sometimes I like to look at that in terms of like, pragmatics, practical ways. How do we make this useful, functional? Is it true? Maybe, maybe not, but is it useful? That's the more important question for me. So anytime when we're having our sessions and I bring whatever I'm experiencing or dealing with to the table, you have this wonderful way of taking me to a broader viewpoint or perspective. I know you teach it and refer to it as the hawk view. And what I love about that is you have a way of making it poetic and almost hypnotic. I tell my husband that you hypnotize me in every session, even though that's not what you do, at least as far as I know. But it's because it like draws me in, but then it always brings me to this place of like, oh, okay, this is what we do with that. So thank you for that and your introduction to this conversation. So what I want to know, and I'm guessing a lot of people want to know, because this comes up a lot in the sessions that I do in groups that I run, is where would you say is that line between, okay, I'm gonna set my intentions. I'm gonna pay attention to signs, synchronicities, my intuition, and of course, some of the more traditional human muggle ways of doing things, of logic and experience, data, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, how do you know if something is like meant to be, or either you missed a spot, messed things up, or you know what I'm saying? Like, where's your part in it?
Mm-hmm. I love everything you said. And, what comes to mind for me so strongly is alignment, and what you teach is such a major part of discerning fate and free will. Is such a big part of that, because it's about getting into yourself and feeling and sensing and knowing your truth, and then making sure that you're on path, which that path is, that is fate, that is destiny. And then, so free will is how far do you want to go, right? So to me, these are two compatible forces, where fate and free will are the two major growth energies in our world. And people think of them as one or the other, like they're oppositions. Either we have fate and we have a destiny, or we have free will. But really, fate is, I was born with a path and a purpose, and I have a destiny. And then free will is, how far do I want to go? So you have this linear experience of time, and humanity experiences things sequentially. It's not real. We know that time is an illusion, but we believe very strongly in our individuation. So right now, I believe I am Amisha. I am alive in 2022. I am 41 years old. Those are all very strongly held experiences for me, so much so that I can't really believe in, okay, and I'm also alive everywhere else at every other time as everyone else. I can't perceive that. So that linear experience we have, even if it's an illusion, we are born with a purpose. And that purpose is natural. It's not like this mystical thing where we're all going to be Gandhi, we're all going to be MLK. It's not like that. It's actually as simple as, you know, I like to make the analogy of growing a seed. So if I have an apple seed and I plant it, the information is in that seed. The seed has a destiny, it has a fate. When it grows, if I nourish it correctly, then it will grow into an apple tree, and eventually it will bear fruit. But it won't become an orange tree. That's not its destiny. No matter what I do, it won't become a mango tree, it won't become a car, it won't become a bird. And that's fate. We all have a similar fate, where we have this imprint of information of our best and highest, and what those potentials are. And just like there is a fruitful period of a tree, we have a fruitful period, which we might call enlightenment. So if we keep going, then the spiritual benefit is we will achieve emotions like bliss, which are supernatural compared to the normal stuff of like, I'm happy because you pleased me. It's like, oh, nobody did anything. Somebody might even have called me a hoe, and I'm still smiling because from the inside, from my state of consciousness, I'm so aware that everything is love, that you can call me anything you want, and I still think you're beautiful, and I still love you, and I still know you love me. So we can access the truth in that space. But spiritually that's the invisible part. The human part is all the achievements that are waiting for us that we might call success. So if there's certain relationships that fully attract us and engage us and make us interested and excited, those are a part of our journey. And those are destiny or fate. And we know, because when we meet those people, we love them dearly. So like when Nova was introducing me, I wanted to cry. I could have said all the same things back about her. Why? Because that's part of our destiny. We were supposed to be here together because we belong together. And that's just how it is. And so relationships are a part of it. The work we do in the world, our contribution is a part of it. All of the things that we enjoy are a part of it. And so when people have conversations about manifestation and creation, how do we create our own reality? How do we manifest something? Sometimes they're not in tune with themselves, and they're coming from a place of should. Well, that person who has $1 million is really happy, so I should want $1 million. And then their manifestation intention is $1 million. When what they really want is to have an unbreakable bond with their son or daughter, because that's really what they want. But they never hear anybody asking for that in manifestation. So they come up with the traditional wealth, health, you know, I want to be thin, I want to have a certain car, you know, they'll go to things that they wanted it in the past from a place of lesser understanding of themselves, or they see other people having it and being happy with it. Whatever happened, somewhere there was programming where their belief system is that they should want something, And then that's usually where you see sabotage, self-sabotage especially, but things don't happen. So somebody says, I've been trying to manifest, this kind of love, or I've been trying to manifest this kind of business. And so for instance, if you look at somebody who's born into a family of doctors, and then they go to med school and they're smart enough to become a doctor, then that person, they'll be in that place where they have what they think they should want, and they'll believe they should be happy, and then they'll think they're wrong. Like, maybe I need antidepressants, maybe I need anti-anxiety medicine, my life is perfect, why am I not happy? And that's really the key. So when people ask about how do I know the difference, yes, on one hand, it's how far do you want to go? Like I said, you have a destiny, you have this imprint of who you are, but how do you get all those wonderful things in your lifetime? It's the key is desire. So in India, where there's the tradition of the yogis talking about, how do we get into what Nova would call alignment? How do we find our destiny? How do we fulfill our purpose? I like colloquially kind of saying what you want wants you back. So that's the root of manifestation. The teachings of manifestation come from Hinduism. And so it starts with what you want wants you. If you want something, if you have that desire, then it's actually information that it's meant for you. So that's the strongest perception we have about our fate and our destiny. It's not our that like amazing dream we had 2 nights ago that showed us a vision. It's not an amazing psychic that we meet that pulls cards and then tells us what it is. So it's not actually mystical unless you want it to be mystical. It's very, very simple. There's a lot of things in the world you don't want. So there's a lot of things that exist that you don't desire. And it's perfect. I don't desire becoming an NBA basketball player, which is good because I'm 5'5", and I'm sure they don't want me for any reason, except maybe as a mascot running around being silly, because it makes no sense for the world of basketball. And so that's kind of how it works, is there's billions of things out there in the world that are experiences, objects, relationships, etc. I don't want any of them. If I'm honest with myself, I don't care about most of those things. I really don't. I don't need that car or that car or that car or that car or that car. I don't need that person's bank account. I don't need that person's hair. I don't need that person's husband. I don't need that person's dog. There's really a lot that I don't want. I just don't want it. I have no desire. So it's when we do have that desire, when something kind of peaks up inside of us as curiosity. I think of it as like, ooh, what makes me want to look over the fence at the neighbor's yard? What's going to get my interest? Because that kind of curiosity is a better indicator of what's meant for you and what you desire, if you're not in the practice of feeling your feelings and having strong desires, which most people are not. So desire is one of the hardest things to get in contact with, because you've been socialized since you were born, and you were told what you should want breakfast in the morning, you should want lunch at noon, you should want dinner at nighttime. And then, for those of you who are like me, where I don't want anything in the morning, I keep stuff away from my mouth, I don't want that. It kind of becomes confusing because there's so much direction. You should want it, you should. So then, okay, so I'll go into autopilot. Here's oatmeal. I'm going to eat that. But it's not really a desire, is it? So desire is small when it comes to the day-to-day experiences where either we're listening to ourselves or we're not. And then for the larger experiences where we might want to say we want to manifest something or create something, this is where things get the most important, because what you want wants you back. Meaning, if I don't really have a connection to this thing I say I want, it will not happen. It's not going to happen no matter what I do. It's not going to happen if I study every manifestation course, if I do everything that every book tells me to do, if I'm spiritually perfect, if I meditate in the morning, if I do my gratitude journal in the evening, if I do everything perfectly, but deep down I don't really want something, it doesn't belong to me. That's me trying to be an orange tree when I'm an apple tree. Does that make sense?
Those of you watching now, you know what I mean about the hypnotic part, right? I just like lean in and take everything that you're in this hypnotic state. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Um, that was one of the most profound shifts that I made in the last couple years with you, is really understanding the power of desire and the role that that plays. Because I think I've always come from the place with that concept of, like want.
Mhm.
Desire is the same as want, and that is an indication of lack, because the
Right.
fact that you're wanting it is stating that, it's not in existence in your world, and then that's the vibration that the universe receives. And that's a difficult place to be. You can get really tangled up in it. So when I started to see it through this lens that you're showing me and speaking to today, where that just very simple phrase, what you want wants you to, what you
Mhm.
desire desires you to. I desire for my cat to leave my door. I don't know if anybody can hear her. She only does this when I'm videotaping. She wants to be a star. What she desires is to be a star. And clearly it desires her too. Sorry, side note. But that simplifies everything. It really does. Because, one of the things that I really want to get across to people that come across my work is that you can trust yourself, you can trust your desires, you can trust your abilities, you can trust everything when you're practicing alignment, because it's like we're energetic beings. Thoughts are creative, words are creative, actions are creative, your emotions rule you. Most people don't realize that. And that's a lot of energy that is scattered all over the place. So
Right.
to be scattered and then take this concept of desire, or take this concept of destiny and free will, that's a really hard course to navigate. But if you're taking the time to sort of focus your energy and connect within and pay attention, I think that's the biggest piece, is pay attention, stay conscious, observe, pay attention to your feelings. And if you're noticing that you have a desire, it's already done. It's just a matter of when and how, what form it's going to take. That provided me so much relief, not only in how I run my business, but my daily life, my personal interactions with people. Cleared up so much for me. So I'm so glad that you brought that into the space and conveyed it. The apple seed metaphor, I know you've shared that one with me before too. That is such a brilliant way of taking such a heady concept and making it very simple. Is um, when we're speaking to life purpose, for example, everybody wants to know what their life purpose is. And I happen to subscribe to the belief that we all have the same purpose. It's to, I'm going to quote Conversations with God here, decide and declare, express and experience who we really are. Uh, that's the same. The purpose is the same, but how we express that is going to look different. So
Mhm.
you're going to grow, the seed is going to grow into the apple or the apple tree, but it might be, a sweet and tango. It might be a red delicious. It might be, there's different ways of expression here. But just knowing that and really embracing that truth about yourself, it creates so much space to be you, to be authentic, to trust yourself in life, in business, you name it.
Yeah. And actually, alignment is the shortcut because for some of my clients, desire is very challenging. And what's amazing is everything that's meant for you will come to you, whether by happy surprise or because you tune into it first. It doesn't matter. So knowing what you want isn't the prerequisite of getting what belongs to you,
Mhm.
right? I didn't know Nova existed. I didn't know oh my gosh, I desire a Nova in my life. I didn't know that. That wasn't on my manifestation list. It wasn't in my goal setting. It was nowhere. But that's the beautiful thing about alignment is you need to have the capacity to receive. And that's how we grow. It's actually, if you think about anything in nature, again, like the apple tree, what it needs is not to have information and knowledge and to be told every day, this is what you need to do to become a sapling or to become a fully grown tree or to blossom and to be pollinated. You don't have to micromanage a tree. What it needs is soil, water, air, sunshine. So alignment is that stuff that nourishes a human the way that a tree is nourished through material, all the materiality that we offer or that the world offers. So it doesn't matter if there isn't an awareness. That's why kids are so awesome, is they don't even know that there's that limitation. They're really free. And so, there's that funny story of like a kid getting on Santa's lap at 3 or 4 years old and saying, I want a pony, because there's no limitation or restriction. The child has this strong feeling about wanting a pony. And that's the amazing thing, is how many of you have acted as Santa or Tooth Fairy or anything else and made a kid's wishes come true. It happens for the kid. It doesn't matter how. It doesn't have to be Santa. If you're being Santa, the wish is still being fulfilled. So there's this incredible, what's incredible is we don't even have to have that really strong sense of desire, especially if we do tend towards lack, especially if we feel like we're missing something, and want is more like longing, or want is more a trigger. If it's a trigger, then something like what Nova teaches within alignment is actually, that's the source of all the good that's to come. You can take your mind off of what's triggering you and what's making you feel like you don't have enough. But we live in a time of abundance. So we're surrounded by stuff. Even people who don't have stuff have stuff. So there's so much energy being put in the direction of humanity receiving everything we want because we're accelerating. So we have our personal fate, our personal choice of how far we want to go, which is all free will is. Do I want to keep going? Yes. Do I not want to keep going? Okay, then hang out here. Sometimes we call it settling, and sometimes it becomes painful. So then it's better to keep going. What's next for me? That's when we want to search and be more connected to our desires. But in terms of collective humanity, we're expanding. So we're going faster. We have so much abundance so that we can have, so we can do more in our lifetimes. Like, this is a thank you to our ancestors. This is because we've had the Buddha, and it's because we've had Jesus, and because we've had these great, great people in the past who have opened us up more and more to potential and possibilities. And the awareness, I just call it love. So for me, when Nova's talking about, coming into who we really are, we're all born to become who we really are. To me, that's love. We're becoming love, or we're becoming tuned into that. And love as a force is benevolent, it is kind, and love as a force brings us together. So it's like magnetic. When love is present, we connect. When love is missing, we don't. So it's really, when we talk about fate or free will, when love is present, right? What is desire? Desire is love. I want that, right? I want that when it comes from curiosity and openness and freedom. If a kid says, I want a pony to Santa, it's the same as I love ponies. Why do you want it? Because I love it. Why do you want a bigger house? Because I would love it. Why do you want, why do you want to be more athletic? Because I would love that body, so there's this, that's really the essence of desire anyway. So as we're all growing and expanding, we kind of, Nova was talking about, we might be different apple trees. We might have our distinction and individuation where we're not all the same kind of apples. There is diversity within the world of apples. And the same is true with us. There's diversity because it teaches us what love is. If I'm different from Nova and then we realize that deep down we're actually the same, then what it does is it creates this awareness that our superficial differences don't matter at all. It's our souls. So diversity makes us aware of our souls. And that's such a big part of our journey, is realizing we're not just this body and this limited form, that this body is animated by something absolutely all powerful, transcendent. It's miraculous. It has powers and gifts that we ought to open up to at some point in our lives in order to be fully connected to the world. So all of those superpowers that some of you have probably experienced, including intuition, including synchronicity, serendipity, miracles, all of that is evidence of connection. So there was enough love in me to connect, and there was enough freedom in me to see the potential of human experience instead of closing myself off to what people say is normal and what people say is the limit of what we can experience.
Mm-hmm. When I got dressed this morning, my style is very casual. I don't think too hard about what I wear. It's just, what do I desire that to wear that will make me feel really comfortable. And the shirt that I chose.
Yay!
I love this shirt. I probably have like 7 articles of clothing that have the word love on it. And that's not really a conscious thing. It's just, I see it and I want it. And I think unconsciously it's everything that you're speaking to is a recognition that at the core of it all, it is the energy is love. And what I love about what you just said the most, I loved so many things. I love that when you look at desire through this lens, you don't have to apologize for what you desire. And that apology, the hesitancy, the reluctance, it's, people feel ashamed of what they desire. That is what creates resistance and actually blocks them from the receiving of it. And if they desire it, like you said, it wants you to, but we do have to be in a position to receive. But then also, that in this concept of connection and oneness is not sameness. And we live in a time where there's a lot of people look around and there's a lot of division. There's a lot of divisiveness. The illusion of separation is rampant right now. And a lot of people have come into a lot of challenges in some of their most sacred relationships, family, friend, community. This person is ultra conservative and this person is ultra, it seems like it's a block, and yet it's an invitation. It can be seen as an invitation that, you might not like this thing about this person because they're so different from your views, but there's an opportunity to step into the oneness there. So I feel like that's at play. I'm not really deterred by the state of the world. I have my moments where it is discouraging, but I see it as sort of the contraction before the expansion, the necessary breaking down before the breakthrough. And this conversation and ones like it are the very threads of what create the breakthrough part. What I want to ask you about now is speaking to actually the nature of how we met and destiny in terms of people.
Yes.
We have a destiny to become the apple tree, but we also have the destiny to be planted next to this tree named Frank. And, we're going to grow together and share roots. You and I met, and we're trying to decide if it was 2018 or 2019, but we went to 2 different parts of the same conference or training in LA. And I went to the first part. It was the first couple days. It was a Mind Valley training. My part was train the trainer or train the speaker or something like that. And I don't remember what you came for, but it was the end of my portion. There was a happy hour or a social or night or something like that. And I was sitting with 2 or 3 of the gals that I had met there. One of which I already knew, our mutual friend, Kathy. And then this like beautiful unicorn creature goddess comes walking in, and she's all alone. And I think you were just wearing like jeans and a t-shirt. You weren't dressed up or anything like that. And you're just like kind of looking around. You looked a little lost, but not lost, like not uncomfortable lost. And I think you were looking for the bar because we all had free drink tickets or something like that. And I mean, I'm a very open person, but I don't reach out to everybody. I can be as you know introverted as I can extroverted. But I just saw you, and it was like I recognized your energy before I recognized anything else or thought anything else. And before I knew it, I was like, you can sit here, like inviting you to come sit with us. I could have invited a million different people that night, or a few. It wasn't that big of an event, but I invited you, and you sat down, and we talked for maybe, I want to say 10 minutes, because my flight was early the next morning and I didn't want to be out late. But in those 10 minutes, and there was enough of an energy exchange. We didn't even talk about anything deep, but it was like there was that recognition that stayed with me. And your words when I got up to leave, you handed me your card and you said, if there's anything I can help you with, just reach out to me. I'd love to help you. And there was nothing schmarmy, business, networky, salesy, nothing. Could not detect a trace of that. Many of you know I read energy, could not detect a trace of that in you. And I was actually taken aback by it, because there was such a richness, a generosity, a level of authenticity that I don't see a lot at these events. And you stuck with me. But it was another month, I think, before I actually did email you. And like, I didn't really know what you did, but I was in a position where I needed to change some things in my business, and I knew I needed help. And I was at a fork in the road. I could have gone this way or this way. And I had one conversation with you once I reached out, and it was just like, this is the person that it felt like destiny. It felt like now is the time for Amisha to be in my life.
I have the chills.
Yeah.
It's been a privilege, because you're clearly the most wonderful human. And I think when you tell that story and ask about relationships, I would say it's such a powerful force that that's why I don't sell, or that's why I haven't had any feeling that there needs to be persuasion. And when you talk about duality and the fact that in this world right now, it's like people are separated. I think that's the power of believing and knowing it, that we are, when we realize that we're really just responsible for our own path, and sensing into it and taking good care of ourselves so we could be on that journey in a wise way. What's amazing is we meet all these people. We don't have to have elevator pitch. That to me is my greatest fear. When somebody looks at me and says, what do you do? I feel paralyzed, and I'm like, I work with people I love. I help people. I love to help people. My favorite thing is helping people. I don't really know how to professionalize the instinct, because it's an instinct. And I know lots of you probably feel that way. I know Nova, in many ways, she's so from the heart and she's so authentic that she has no choice but to be her message. So I think a lot of us experience that there's, so there's duality in this society. There's people who believe this or believe that, and there's opinions and there's division. And then there's others of us that we're so focused on our message, and our message always brings those people together. So it's like there's this in-between world, and we have this escalator, and we're like, guys, come with us. It's nice here. Aren't you tired there? Come with us. It's so nice here, because it is really nice here. We have so much joy, no matter what the world says is happening. So in the news, they're like, this is happening in the economy, and because of COVID, this is happening. And so, for instance, during COVID, there was, all this news, businesses are shutting down, people are making less money, they don't have enough expendable income. Well, all my clients made plenty of money, and I made plenty of money, and we had no disruption. Why is that? It's because those ideas are never going to be in contrast to your mission and your purpose. Nothing, even a drought can't stop an apple tree. You know, it can happen, there can be a drought, but the resources are there and things will still, the tree will still grow, the forest still stays alive, even during a drought. There's forest fires, but the forest is still there afterwards. You know, so it's incredible how resilient we are. And when it comes to relationships, to me, there's right, the purpose of the diversity in our world is expansion. So when I look back, and that expansion speaks to freedom. So just as we have our own freedom of consciousness, you know, we have freedom in our own selves to become who we want to be. In society too, freedom is the goal, right? Our freedom individually brings us to enlightenment. Our freedom societally brings us to, really, it brings us to joy and love. It brings us to a state of human enlightenment that's shared. So when I was little, you know, I've told Nova this before, when I was little, interracial marriage was illegal. So I'm Indian. I'm growing up in a neighborhood with no other Indian people. Thankfully, by the time I was a teenager and I liked boys, thankfully it became legal. So it wasn't as taboo to associate with people of different colors. And so what is that experience when you're not allowed? So say society says you're not allowed to do that. You know, there's family pressure. Amisha, you should focus on meeting somebody Indian, right? So society says it's bad and wrong to go and connect with somebody else. But when we do that, what we're acknowledging is, one, I have an inner compass that always tells me what's right for me, and it's undeniable, and I can't talk myself into it. So, okay, you can give me the information, you know, age 21 Amisha, you can give her the profile of the perfect Indian man that mom and dad are going to love. And he has, you know, he's handsome, best career ever, has tons of money, drives a BMW, whatever. But you know, if I don't desire that person, that's soul to soul. He is not a connection to me in that way. We don't belong to each other. And so that is the beautiful thing about feeling. And then the people who have really been pioneers, to be in that role, to say, okay, we're going to be the first interracial couple married in the United States. That is, I followed my destiny so clearly above and beyond any social rules that now I've disrupted what's right and wrong, what's good and bad, and I've allowed everybody else to be more free as well. So desire actually brings us all closer to the truth and to an expanded awareness of love, and that we're all souls, and that in the end, we all belong to one another. But that's the process more recently of gay and lesbian couples or anyone else where there's taboo around their love relationships or their friendships or the work that they want to do. You know, the same is true if somebody, say they're a man and they want to learn ballet or whatever it might be. There are certain things that we are less receptive to as a society. And it's when those people break those limits and they follow the desire, they're called. It's a calling. They literally feel like they can't say no. And I know you have those things in your life where you feel like you can't say no. So when we go forward like that, that's our growth path. That's destiny, that's fate. It should feel like a calling. And I know for some people, there's confusion because you want to eat chocolate cake for breakfast, you know, or you want to, you know, you want to spend $1 million on a wardrobe yesterday, and you make only 100,000 a year, you know. I know for some people, there is that fear, that desire is actually connected to compulsion or addiction, or it's like something immoral, or it's base, or it's wrong. So isn't it bad to want something? Shouldn't I be satisfied, content, and grateful? And, you know, we do have this world where, you know, if somebody's like, we have these limits, right? Like We don't want somebody to say, I desire punching that person in the face, and then they go and they punch someone in the face. And what I would say is that's never a calling, it's never truly a desire. I would call that an incomplete desire. So it's when we've repressed, when we've shut down our freedom to desire, when we've told ourselves no too many times, that's when we have a distortion. That's when it's like, oh, I just want to punch that person in the face. Is that ever real? No, that's never real. What it shows you is there's a step before trusting the desires that you have, which is to free yourself, become more free. Because it's only if we've repressed and repressed and repressed, I don't want to show people the truth. People will think I'm wrong. I was told when I was a kid never to want things. If there's stuff like that that's dampening our feeling of freedom, then it will be distorted. Now, what I want is chocolate, only chocolate, every day, only give me chocolate, versus the nourishing, diverse, healthy diet that I should be consuming. So, yeah, so with relationships, I know I'm kind of bouncing around, going back and forth, but with relationships, I think this happens more than with anything else in our lives because there is such a strong profile about who we're supposed to be with and in what way. So what I've seen happen to a lot of people is they get bound by an expectation, not a person, but an expectation. So they'll say, they'll have that connection, the Amisha Nova connection of, yes, of course, this is perfect. People will have that connection and then they'll get married, or they'll have that connection and it's with a sibling. We have lots of those connections in our lives. But what'll happen is if somebody has been repressing their desires, then they usually self-modify and they don't act like themselves. So they believe they have to be, here's what it means to be a husband or a wife. Here's what it means to be a parent. Here's what it means, to be a leader in the workplace. Here's what it is to be a student. Basically, the profile of roles as we see them become dominant, and then we try to become that, whether we're conscious or not conscious of it, instead of sourcing from our own desires. Instead of knowing, well, I'm in this leadership role, but that's for me to express myself as who I am and invent the leadership that I was born to invent versus repeat something that I believe is correct. Mm-hmm. And then in relationships, what that means is sometimes we disconnect from the people we're closest to. Or it means that sometimes we're scared of relationships that come into our lives because they don't fit our concept of what we're supposed to be doing. So in a dramatic example, if somebody is married and then they meet someone they're super connected to that has that romantic feeling, then that becomes really scary for somebody because, okay, so what is the desire telling me? Why would desire do this to me? Fuck you, desire. Why would you do this to me? That's so mean. I'm happy, And that's really that's when you know that you're a pioneer. That's when you know you're actively inventing what's next. The same way that, like I said, when I was little, thankfully interracial marriages happened before I was old enough to perceive that somebody might see me as less than. So, and of course it still affected me, but now we've come so far that kids who are Indian or non-white, they're going to have a completely different experience than I had because we keep doing better. And, same with gay and lesbian couples, we keep opening up our concept of what souls look like. What are souls allowed to do? Can souls be even more important than the human experience that we have? And it's their strength of awareness of their desire and their spiritual calling that's opening doors. And then now if we have that feeling of, oh my God, what's happening and why, if we ever have that feeling in relationship, what's happening and why, it means we're at that edge. We've come to the next threshold in human experience. The purpose is always to realize I'm a soul and you're a soul. And the more we expand into love, the more people we're going to love. I'm not saying, this is not me saying therefore what's next is polygamy because we're going to love more people or anything like that. I think the opposite is true. I think it actually calls us forth to expand our intimacy with our chosen partners. And it gives us the freedom that if we one day realize that we are not supposed to be with our chosen partner, that it's not bad or wrong to let go. So it's okay to be authentic and true to yourself. And instead of feeling that there's a taboo, we can do something cool and new, like be best friends instead, or be family instead. You know, I remember when I was in college, one of my dear friends, her parents lived on the same street in different houses, and they were divorced, but they were together. And they used to come to all of our events, and they were super, super happy. And it was like, but this is what they chose. And, you know, it didn't mean they didn't love each other. If anything, they expanded into something we haven't seen before, and maybe there's something to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a beautiful example of what you're talking about when you say that you've got destiny, which is it's a calling, it's your desire is going to lead you to it, and then you've got free will. And the free will is how far do you want to go? Well, in that example that you just gave, their desire to go further to create this and pioneer this new way, this new representation of what family and parenting, co-parenting can look like. And we are seeing that pop up in so many different areas in families and in marriages and relationships and gender and sexual identity in the workplace and parenting and, you know, all these different contextual fields. And what that says to me, and this will kind of wrap us up here because we could go on forever, couldn't we? Is that we all have a destiny, don't we, as a collective? That destiny, I would put it, I think you can put it a bunch of different ways, but a very simple way is to return to oneness, return to love, to remember that there is no true separation, and that because we're in the world of the relative, that doesn't mean, again, that sameness is oneness or oneness is sameness, that there's such beauty and invitation in diversity. How far do you want to go? How far do you want to go with it? And you can trust based on two things, desire and alignment. But I think that in order to trust desire, you have to have alignment, which is another way to put that is you have to have consciousness. You have to have discernment. You have to have intentionality. You have to trust yourself. You can't just say, like, I desire to punch somebody in the face. Again, a true desire that is rooted in who you really are is never going to harm anybody. It's only going to add to and add to that expansion that's occurring. So that's what we're here for. That's why we're having these conversations, is to help build that connection and that trust and that discernment. So, boy, I just could listen to you forever. I can see how you were a professor for as long as you were. You just really draw in with your energy, but also just the way that you can convey these bigger concepts in very simple models and metaphors and representations. I appreciate that so much about you. And I appreciate that you are one of those people. I probably have a handful of people throughout my 41 years on this planet that I can say I met and instantly recognized and instantly fell in love with, no matter what the other rhyme or reason or constructs involved were. And you're one of them. I knew you the instant that I met you. And I'm so happy that we get to continue this journey and in this world together. So thank you for running into me.
Thank you too. Thank you for seeing the last sleepy person and inviting me to sit down.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing, because I think you're right when you say desire and alignment are, you know, these two are both necessary. As I said before, you really, alignment is the piece that's most necessary. I'd rather somebody have surprises of all the good things that are going to happen in their lives than you know, have strong want but not be receptive. So yeah, what you're teaching is invaluable to everyone.
Thank you. Well, I will end by asking you two things. One is, where can people find more about you and what you have to offer?
My website is treeoflifesuccess.com. And then more secretly, there's a teaching platform for other coaches, and it's thealchemyofcoaching.co. So without an M.
Okay, awesome. And obviously, to those of you who are watching who are in the coaching industry or the entrepreneurial industry, or just want to really express yourself consciously in this world, Amisha's your gal. Seriously, I cannot recommend her more. She's just been amazing, a light in my life and in the lives of everybody I have the privilege to touch. And then my final question for you is, what is your favorite way to get into alignment, to connect within so that you can move about your day with that consciousness and follow
Um,
your desires?
is it wrong to say drinking coffee? Is that one too?
No,
Okay.
ma'am. No, I
Yeah,
think that's
coffee, the smell of coffee, the taste of coffee. But I think it starts the night before, because in the evening, the last thing I do before I sleep is I write a gratitude journal. So I just write everything that I'm thankful for that day. So I'm going to say my morning starts in a positive way because my day ends in a positive way.
hmm I love that. And I think coffee is a very spiritual, conscious thing. Not that everybody has to drink it or love it, but I know what you mean. I wake up in the morning and the thing that pulls me out of bed more than anything is the smell of my freshly brewed coffee and the
Yeah.
promise of getting to sit on the couch in the quiet and just sink in for the day. So I can appreciate that one. Well, thank you again so much for joining me in this conversation, Amisha, and everything that you bring to the table. And thank you to those of you who are watching. If there's anything you want me to cover along the lines of consciousness and spirituality and alignment, vibration, being human, embracing what is, following that flow, desire, any of those things where you want to hear from other people and conversations like this, please let me know. Email me, drop a comment on this YouTube page, and share this with others that you think would benefit from it too. All right, until next time, bye-bye.